Look at the sheer physical footprint of the Emirates today. This is an aerial view of Palm Jumeirah in Dubai. It is a massive, engineered concentration of global capital and raw developmental willpower. Now look at this dual-axis chart. On the left, we have the immense volume of bilateral trade and the massive population of Indian expatriates living and working in the region. Look at the bottom line. That zero-value trajectory represents prime ministerial visits to the UAE. Prior to 2015, that line remained flat for 34 years. An entire generation of massive economic and demographic exchange occurred alongside total diplomatic silence. Relying entirely on transactional exchanges, buying oil and sending back remittance checks, creates a highly exposed position. Without a strategic, state-level framework to absorb political shocks, the entire economic pipeline could theoretically freeze overnight. That vulnerability is exactly what Prime Minister Narendra Modi intervened to correct. He recognized that this historical anomaly had to be systematically dismantled. Watching how this highly specific, single-lane transactional highway was engineered into a complex, multi-layered alliance offers a clear window into how modern Indian statecraft is actually executed. The initial diplomatic visit in 2015 acted as a physical catalyst. It broke 3 decades of silence, forcing long-dormant institutional mechanisms to engage. The first phase of this overhaul required completely structuring the economic baseline. Both nations deliberately moved away from a simple buyer-seller dynamic centered around crude oil. Instead, they negotiated and signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, or CEPA, designed to deeply entangle their domestic markets and lower trade barriers. This line graph tracks non-oil trade volume between the two countries. You can see an immediate upward surge right at the point of CEPA's implementation, proving the policy had a rapid, quantifiable impact on the ground. That spike in the data requires massive logistical capacity. The sheer physical mass of goods moving across the Arabian Sea now requires immense, continuous maritime throughput to keep up with demand. UAE sovereign wealth and private capital are also actively deploying into new sectors within India, specifically funding large-scale renewable energy infrastructure and backing emerging technology markets. By diversifying the capital flow, they removed the fragility of the old oil-based dependency and locked themselves into a mutually beneficial economic engine. But massive economic arteries are highly vulnerable if you cannot protect them. That requires a shared security framework. Historically, India struggled to engage deeply with individual Gulf nations without getting entangled in broader Middle Eastern rivalries. To build this specific alliance, New Delhi had to carefully isolate its UAE partnership from those surrounding regional tensions. Once that diplomatic space was cleared, the two nations signed high-level joint defense and counterterrorism agreements, establishing a shared commitment to keeping their immediate maritime and regional borders stable. Beyond military coordination, there is the human element to consider. By treating the UAE leadership as a top-tier diplomatic peer, the Indian government significantly upgraded the standing and security of the millions of Indian citizens already living and working in the Emirates. We saw the physical manifestation of this trust recently, with the inauguration of a massive, traditional Hindu temple right in the heart of Abu Dhabi, a gesture of cultural inclusion that would have been highly unlikely a decade ago. When you layer hard military alignment underneath broad cultural integration, you build a diplomatic shock absorber. The alliance can now survive sudden geopolitical disruptions. We can now step back and look at the larger map. What started as an isolated repair job has evolved into a foundational piece of global architecture. Notice the formation of the I2U2 grouping on this map. By formally linking India, Israel, the UAE, and the United States, a completely new structural polygon emerges across the Middle East and Asia. The primary mechanism making this four-way partnership viable is the deep, pre-existing trust carefully established between New Delhi and Abu Dhabi over the last several years. You can scale up even further to the proposed India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor. Look at the route. The UAE acts as the absolute physical pivot point connecting Indian maritime transit to overland routes heading into European markets. Anchoring these massive physical corridors effectively fills the historical power vacuum, creating a new counterbalance in the global economic system. In a multipolar system, passive relationships hold very little weight. By aggressively identifying a weak link and engineering it into a multidimensional alliance, a nation transitions from merely participating in the region to actively designing its future.